Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. We're live from Old Hall Street, and today I'm joined by Theo Squires.
Hi, Joe. I'm tired. I think I've been out late every day this week, or with Christmas dues, Sheffield United. But yeah, looking forward to this one.
The birthday girl is here, Beth Lindop. How are you?
Thank you. 16 today. So good one. Yeah.
What a nice birthday.
Well, I couldn't ask for a better way to spend it, could I, than being here with all of you. So yeah.
Yeah. And Tom Cavilla, how are you, Tom? Back from your travels?
Yes, I'm
is this
good,
your first podcast back?
It is.
From your travels?
Yeah.
What's your tan?
I don't know. It's gone. It's gone already. So after a week.
Tell the audience where you've been. They've been wondering.
I've been to Ecuador and Peru.
Nice. On
Nice.
a scouting mission. Any players? Spot any?
I went to one game
or...
in Quito and had a look at the midfielder Chelsea signed. He's not able to join them yet because he's still under 18. But that was the only game I managed to watch. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
that's not the best scouting mission. That's not a player Liverpool can sign. He's already going Chelsea.
Maybe in a few years.
I realised, by the way, because we're live, and I just fudged the beginning, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm your host. I'm Joe Rimmer. And this is the Blood Break podcast.
Everyone knows who you are by now.
Well, I hope so. But our producer, Ian, will be sending us some. Put your questions into the comments, and we'll try and do a bit of a live Q&A as we go along. And Ian will send me your questions as we go along, and I'll put them to the panel. But let's start with Theo. You were at the press conference today. Jurgen Klopp. It was a good press conference. There was lots of interesting lines from it. But we'll start at the end of it. James Pearce asked him a question that I think is on a lot of Liverpool fans' minds right now. What will Liverpool do in the transfer market after that terrible news? And we'll discuss Joe Matip shortly. But the terrible news that he's done his ACL and will be out for the season. Sends us all back to sort of Van Dijk in those days of losing centre halves. James asked him, will you go into the transfer market? And Jurgen Klopp wasn't really impressed, was he?
No, he wasn't. It's the sort of thing he said before. He doesn't like signing players when players are injured, because then they come back and then you've suddenly got an overpopulated squad. But he doesn't really consider in the fact that Matip's out of contract next summer. You were going to be short a centre-back. You wanted to sign a centre-back in the summer. You admitted that back in May. Yeah. It's not a ridiculous question to be asking him, are you going to go in for a centre-back in January? And he just dismissed it. Like the starter was almost offended, wasn't he, at the question? Going, you don't understand how complicated these transfers are. We will need a top-class defender who can actually play for us. No one wants to get rid of them, especially in January. And then he just sort of finished his answer by going, I don't think we will. You wouldn't be surprised if that's a bit of a fib. Like if something does come up, the right player is there, they do make a move. Like we've seen it before with a Gakpo or a Diaz. When the right player is there, Liverpool will make the move in January.
Can I just say, I thought like he went round the houses a bit to try and not fully answer it. I know he did drop that. It's unlikely at the end, but I felt like he just didn't really want to say yes. We will be thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a situation where Liverpool, if the right player is there, they're going to have to look at it. Yeah. Like Jarrell Quansah has had an amazing breakthrough season. Maybe it makes it not as much of a pressing issue for Liverpool that they do need another one. But you look at Konate's injury record, you look at Gomez's injury record. You're not telling me that we're going to get to May and neither of those two suffer another injury. Van Dijk's had a great year, but he could be one injury away from something like that as well. You need a bit more cover there. And when Liverpool were looking at the centre-backs in the summer, it was that young profile, the left-sided one who could also play left-back, who could complement this new formation with Trent going into midfield and be that back three like Man City do with a Nathan Ake or a Cavadio. And that's maybe still the profile that Liverpool need. That doesn't change from Matip being out. Like whoever this player was, they were going to be a long-term replacement for Matip, maybe a long-term replacement for Van Dijk. And if you could have Matip going at the end of his contract, which I know Klopp's given a hint saying that might not happen, that you need someone to fill that void. And we've seen last year, Liverpool didn't sign a midfielder. Everything went to pot. We saw in 2020-21, they didn't sign a centre-back. Everything went to pot. When they've started so well this season, it would be a massive gamble if this is the stance that stays, that they don't want to bring anyone in. We'll see. There's still plenty of time. There's been someone linked with the Mirror today, haven't they? Yeah. Names are going to pop up in the next few weeks, and we'll see at some point whether something becomes a bit more concrete.
Yeah, Beth, do you think that this was a manager who was trying to almost back his squad, or do you think that Liverpool are ready to take that gamble that we know often doesn't pay off again?
Yeah, I mean, we know that Jurgen Klopp's not always too forthcoming with talking about transfer rumours. I think the exception to that was the Caicedo one, when he confirmed that they put an offer in and they'd had an offer accepted. But other than that, he does like to distance himself, doesn't he, in press conferences, usually about who Liverpool are linked with. And I suppose as well with the Matip one, it's still quite fresh, isn't it? It's only a couple of days since he found out. I think if that hadn't have happened and Matip had have been fit, I think they probably would have waited until next summer to bring another centre-back in. So I think that maybe the club will now take a little bit of time to reevaluate that. But yeah, I would be frustrated. I think Klopp, quite often when he gets asked about transfers, he sort of spins it almost on the fans a little bit, as if they're being a little bit sort of ungrateful with the lot. And transfers, it's not a fairy tale or a wonderland, I think was the word he used this morning. And I understand that. And, the modern football fan can be a little bit, you always want the next best thing, don't you? But equally, I think Liverpool fans know, as Theo said, we've been burnt a few times over the last few years by just leaving ourselves a little bit short. And I think particularly in the context of how this season's going, Liverpool are right amongst the title challengers. Manchester City obviously look a little bit off colour. I mean, you imagine that they will find the form at some point, but I do think this season it could be sort of a title race that you only need maybe 90 points to win it, which I think this Liverpool squad could reach. But yeah, you just don't want to get to the end of the season and then look back and think, if only we'd have signed a centre-half in January. Yeah,
Robbie Totten on Facebook said that Liverpool need a centre-back and a defensive midfielder. I find it hard to disagree with him now, especially with Matip going down injured. And I would have argued they probably needed one before he went down injured, Tom. Why is it that transfers is a bit of a taboo word around Jurgen Klopp? I know that he likes to back his team. I know that he likes to back his squad, but a big part of what he's done well at Liverpool is get transfers right more often than not. So why is it that we can't accept that they are a part of what makes a good team?
Transfers and 12:30 kickoffs as well. Don't mention that. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of managers are a bit like that. They don't really want to.
I think more managers are a bit more upfront about transfers.
You just want Sam Allardyce, didn't you? Harry Redknapp comes up and says everything.
Hangs out his car window.
I do get it a little bit. I mean, if you're a manager, you don't really want to give too much away. I guess maybe he'll look at it in terms of, if he just came out and started saying, yeah, we want this player, and you've got all your rivals listening to that and say, oh, Liverpool are going to go for this player, and other clubs might, if they're a selling club, go, oh, Liverpool are looking for a centre back, we'll put our price up for that player. So I think if you're sort of making it publicly known you're looking for a certain type of player, it can work against you in that way, particularly from the selling club's point of view in terms of the price. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, he seems to be a bit touchy these days on certain topics. That's one of them. I don't know if it's just because he doesn't want to give much away, and like you said, maybe it is because he's got a plan for that. And yeah, I don't think it's that strange he does it. I mean, I don't think many managers come out and say this position we're going to try and sign.
I think that not as many managers get so offended.
No, that's true.
By the word transfer.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's just one of those things for him that he just doesn't want to talk about. But it was a fair question, like you said. I think it was a reasonable question.
I think TC's onto something there. They were linked with Van de Ven, weren't they, in the summer, and as soon as their name's linked and the players talking about it, his agent's talking about it, that price tag seems to go up and up to the extent where Liverpool walked away, it's too expensive, and then he went to Tottenham and it was a bit less than what was being reported, but it was still a big fee. And when Liverpool, they probably are planning for a centre back at some point, like Klopp's hinted to that in the past, whether it's we'd like to sign one back in May, or when he said we've revamped the attack, we've revamped the midfield, you're moving towards you're going to need to do the defence sooner rather than later. At least this time they have got that plan in place. Like there is going to be something going on behind the scenes, and we've seen in the past getting a little bit of trouble for how they've gone about business with certain players when it is that public knowledge or it is more out there. They like to do it behind the scenes. They like it to be quiet. They like to come out and grab an opportunity, get a player for a good fee rather than get caught up into a bidding war with like Caicedo, for example. It's just much more the Liverpool's way to try and make it a bit more seamless. Yeah. And like Tom said there, if the club knows that Liverpool want a centre-back now with Matip out, they will put that price up right at the start of the window. Whereas if you reckon you can get through to the end of January and then go, here's a lesser amount, you can get it. That works in their favour. at least in the past when we've seen the emergency signings, the reaction ones like Kabak, Ben Davis, Artemelo, that was after Klopp said we're not going to do anything, and then they do. But this is something they have been planning for. They will have been planning for right back to the summer, maybe even January. So you'd like to think this will have a more positive outcome, even if they do go for 6 months and then try and get a centre back in the summer rather than in January.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because they don't fill me with confidence, Beth, that they are planning to sign a centre half in January. You know, we've seen it before where they've sort of let it be known that they're planning on doing certain things and then don't do them. And I know there's only a certain number of players, and Klopp alluded to that in his press conference, that Liverpool could buy that would improve them. But surely this is where the long-term strategy of working on deals should pay off. And you know, at the end of the day, even going into the season, you always thought one injury at centre half or a couple of injuries at centre half, and you're really struggling. You know, again, is this where we're seeing Liverpool's long-term planning isn't quite as good as we once thought?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think for a long time, you know, under Jurgen Klopp and Michael Edwards and Julian Ward, you sort of felt that Liverpool were 9 times out of 10 going to get it right in the transfer market, and they were lauded, and rightly so, for some of the transfers that they brought in. But I think the last couple of years, that sort of succession planning and you know, having a plan in place, you know, we had quite an ageing squad, didn't we, last season? It's not always felt that like that succession planning has been there, and I do agree with you. I'm not completely full of confidence, even though I think maybe take what Klopp said today with a pinch of salt, because I think there is always an element of sort of smoke and mirrors, isn't there, with transfers. But I think that, as Theo referenced there, the Kabak signing, the Ben Davis signing, I mean, they didn't work out very well, and that came after, you know, a month of Liverpool and Klopp being stubborn about not wanting to go out and buy a player that you know, spend over the odds for a player who they didn't actually really want. And I do get that, I know, but I think now they've got a little bit of time. I know January is notoriously a really hard window, but they do have a little bit of time. It shouldn't be one of those sort of panic signings that they leave to the last week of the January window.
They've got some of their best deals in January.
Well,
for a notoriously hard window, Liverpool do notoriously well.
Yeah, and I suppose as well it comes down to how highly Klopp rates Jarell Quansah, doesn't it? I mean, you know, few of us would have expected him to have hit the heights that he has so far this season. Hasn't really put a foot wrong. He looks, you know, sometimes young players come through and you sort of think they could make it, but I think you think he will have you know, if he carries on his current trajectory, have a really top career and could very much be a Liverpool centre half for the next 10, 15 years. But that being said,
no pressure.
Well, exactly, it is huge pressure, obviously, and I think, you know, would Klopp be prepared to throw him in against Manchester City, for example, if in a couple of months' time there's injuries to Gomez and Konate? I don't know. So I think if the answer to that question is no, then they need to go out and buy a more experienced defender in January.
Yeah, Sean Cliff, Tom, says that they need a right back as well, because Trent's moving into midfield and he sees England's closest player that England have to David Beckham. I'd say, you know, I'd go as far as I love Beckham as a player.
Just you remember Beckham.
Yes. That Trent is a better all-rounder than Beckham ever was. But right back as well, I mean, I don't think it's totally off the table.
No, I think especially the way it's going with Trent as well, the fact that he's becoming, you know, each game you're seeing him more and more advanced in that sort of final third area, playing passes through to Nunez. You know, it might not be long before he is just moved there completely. And yeah, then you obviously have that need for the right back. I would go along with that in terms of, I think the right back would be needed. Obviously, you've got Conor Bradley, but he's had that long-term injury and is only now sort of coming back into things. And there's not really much cover there in general anyway. I mean, Joe Gomez is filled in there a few times. James Milner used to be the player you could put there if you need someone to go there as well. So it's always been a bit of a position that Liverpool never really had great depth in. Same for left back a little bit. Obviously, you've got Tsimikas the last couple of years, but I think the defence in general has kind of been not neglected, but they don't have the same. If you compare it to the forward position, the depth they've got there compared to the defence, it's complete opposite.
You could call it apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I've got a question from apples and oranges, so we'll come on to that.
But yeah, it's quite a quite a drop off in
I think I
terms
explained that one.
Very niche reference.
when you sort of Liverpool are down to the lesser option or second or third choice in attack and defence. The difference is just massive in terms of quality.
Yeah, well, we do have a question from Apples and Oranges, who wants an update on Robertson and Jota. We haven't had an update on Robertson for a while, as it just appears he's going to be towards January.
You'd imagine so. Like, it was dislocated shoulder. That's what normally 3-4 months. I know Nick Pope's just done it, and they're saying he'll probably be out until April, March time. Yeah. I think with Robertson, we always expected start of next year.
Yeah, and then Jota, he was back outside running, wasn't he? But Klopp said he was a little bit behind Alisson.
Yeah, I don't think we're expecting him just yet. It'll be back end of the month. I don't want to give too much away because it was in the embargoed section, but he was briefly referenced in there, that alludes to what's coming in January. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to have to wait too much longer for Jota, but it will be a couple of weeks, you'd imagine, still.
Okay, great. Klopp did also hint, Theo, that Matip could get a new deal. He said he wants the club to do the right thing. I mean, would you give him a new deal?
Gorsty and I jinxed it here because we were saying on a podcast, I think a week or two ago, the way he's going, he probably does deserve it. And then sure enough, he goes and does his ACL. It's a difficult one because the way he was playing this season, he deserved it. And he's one of those players that isn't going to complain when he drops down that pecking order and he's third or fourth choice. An experienced backup defender when Gomez or Konate overtake him in pecking order, and you're absolutely happy with that. And this year he's shown his quality again. But when you come back from an ACL injury, that takes time. You don't have any clue what sort of state he'll be in after that, whether that's him finished at this elite level or if he can get it back. Like we've seen Van Dijk get it back. Molly was great that first season. He still then had a big drop off before coming again. And when you're already edging towards those mid-30s, it's whether you're running out of time. It just depends what Matip wants to do and who else is available. Like if he's going to be fine for pre-season, or you can have a proper look at him in pre-season and then make the decision, he's fine as a fourth choice after this sort of injury. But he's always going to have these sorts of niggles. And while he hasn't had too many bad ones since the last season-ending injury, you do think the ACLs normally mean you then pick up a couple more after it. So it just depends what is available there that can take his place in the squad. And we know Klopp, he likes keeping all his players together. He's won absolutely everything with all of these. He's not going to say, yeah, I want him gone. This is him done. He's played his last game. Mm-hmm. He'd always be keen to give him a new contract, the same as he wanted to keep James Milner, for example, in the summer, or Bobby Firmino. It comes down to what the player wants to do. He might decide it's time to move on. But at least this season, before the injury, we got a glimpse of Matip at his best again. Like it's not as though if he'd gone in the summer, he's properly declined like we saw with a Henderson or a Fabinho the year before. It's given that glimpse of he can still be a top player.
All right, Boris, can you just give me a yes or no?
What, would I give him a new contract? No.
Beth?
I would, yeah.
Yeah?
I think, yeah, maybe. I mean, I know Klopp gets accused quite a lot, doesn't he, of being a bit over-sentimental, and I would agree with that at times in terms of, he obviously pushed for Jordan Henderson to get that massive deal, didn't he? And a few other ones that were maybe slightly questionable. But I think the way that Klopp phrased it this morning, he said of like the club to do the right thing. Is that the wording that he used? Yeah. And I think that sort of indicates he's maybe meaning that more from a human perspective than a football perspective. And
like you still do the rehab after your contract's run out with the club.
Yeah, that is true. But I think Joe Matip has been, I think, one of probably could stake a claim for being one of Liverpool's best ever free transfers, Absolutely. Couldn't he? And I always say that season, the 18-19 season, the second half of that campaign when Liverpool pushed Manchester City all the way and won the Champions League, Virgil got all the plaudits and deservedly so because he was immense. But equally, I think Matip matched his level on a number of occasions that season.
So rubbed up the Ballon d'Or then?
Well, maybe. But I think obviously because of the nature of the two players, Van Dijk was the flashy signing and he's got so much charisma, and Matip is quite quirky, isn't he? He's not on social media. He's quite quiet, doesn't speak to the media an awful lot. So I think he's gone under the radar, and it's been nice to see him get the plaudits this season. And that's probably why it's so sad that this injury has come now. Certainly a couple of weeks ago, I would have liked to have seen him given a new deal. I think maybe someone pointed out to me the other day, actually, is younger than. So I think we think of him as being this aging player, and obviously he is getting older, but he's not sort of on his last legs. He's still, if it weren't for this injury, would have a few years probably left at a top level. So I don't see the harm in giving him a year's extension, letting him sort of, again, providing he would be happy to sort of be a squad player and just sort of ensure his rehabilitation goes well and get him in, getting back to some sort of level of fitness and cut games and stuff like that. I wouldn't be against that personally.
Tom?
I'm a bit undecided about this. I mean, me and Theo did a piece on it and I said no in the article, but
heartless. All of you are heartless.
No, I think he's a really good player. I was saying, I think Liverpool need to be careful of not doing the same mistake of what they did last year, where you've got all these players coming to the end at the same time, and then it becomes an issue of needing to replace 6-7 players at once who've all left. I think if it was 1 year, maybe yes. If it's longer than that, I'd probably say no, because I don't think you'd want Matip for 2-3 years more than that.
It all depends on the conditions he's in.
Yeah, and I think it does depend, doesn't it? If they went out in January and got a really great centre half that seems the future, then perhaps it might be the best thing for everyone to let Matip have maybe a big send off at Anfield in some way, shape, or form, whether that's playing or not, and then let him depart. But I do go along with Beth in the sense that he's obviously a good personality. He's very experienced. If he's your fourth choice, then if he allows the likes of Quanta to get ahead of him and can support them, then why not? And yeah, phenomenal player and somebody who I think the comedy side of him, which we love, has almost overshadowed sometimes for the wider. I mean, Liverpool fans know exactly how good he is, but I think for the wider football stratosphere, I think people perhaps don't realise just how good he is. I mean, he's very commanding, isn't he? And I think Liverpool will find it difficult to replace somebody.
Just like how he starts the attacks from the back. He makes some of those surging runs forward. It's impossible to take it off him.
But even that has become, it's almost like a little bit of a fun moment for Liverpool fans. We laugh and go on. But actually, he's very effective.
Yeah. And he scores goals and he sets up goals from doing it.
And how many centre-halves have we seen? I think about my time watching Liverpool. I can't remember too many centre-halves who are capable of doing what he does. So I think he's one of them that when he finally does step away from Liverpool, that they will miss him. So a big blow for them. Just quickly, excuse me, on other injuries, Theo Mac Allister looks like he's not going to be fit enough for tomorrow. It's a cut, isn't it, on his knee?
Yeah, he required stitches. Like, it was pretty much kicked black and blue, wasn't he, against Sheffield United? They were targeting him from the very off, and it was strange how their fans were booing him for getting his knee stitched up and bandaged.
It was a very Chris Wilder type.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a surprise to see him finally succumb to it in the game, and Klopp was playing it down at the time, and I know Mac Allister's played it down on social media as well. But when you've had those stitches to your leg, and it seems like it stopped him being able to run around freely around the hour mark there, it's not surprised he's going to miss a game or two. But you'd like to think he'll be back for Manchester United. Yeah, it'll be good for having him in that midfield for that one.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Now Liverpool, they've basically got a dead rubber on Thursday. They can just keep him for that game and hopefully be fit for that one. Beth, do you think that Liverpool have more injuries than perhaps people realise at the moment? There's a lot of talk about Man City have got some problems. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne being missing is having a big bearing on them. Newcastle have got some awful problems. Accept that, but Liverpool have continued to compete at the top end of the league, despite having first choice left back, first choice centre half, first choice goalkeeper. Now Mac Allister going down, but many problems in midfield. Jota going out. I mean, they have dealt so well, haven't they, with what they've been dealt this season?
Absolutely. And Newcastle, for example, they have had a really tough time of it. And I think maybe because Liverpool have had over the past couple of years some really bad injury crises, that this doesn't feel as bad. But when you actually look at the players that are out, there is a significant number that have been out. And even sort of going back to Matip, the only reason he really got a run in the side is because Konate got injured, isn't it? So, Konate hasn't been fit for a lot of the season as well. And I think maybe the difference for Liverpool now, as opposed to a couple of years ago, is that they have significant squad depth. I think when you look certainly in the attacking areas, Jota has scored, I don't know how many goals he scored this season. He scored quite a few.
7 maybe. He's like second leading goal scorer.
So, for a lot of teams in the Premier League, if you said you've taken away a striker that scored 7 goals for you this season, that's a huge blow. But I think because Liverpool have such a wealth of attacking options now, you don't feel that quite as much. And the same goes for midfield. Obviously, it'll be a blow to lose Mac Allister, but there's lots of encouragement to take from Endo's performance against Sheffield United. Curtis Jones will be wanting to stake a claim for a place in the 11. Gravenberch, Harvey Elliott. So I think that's where the club, as much as we sort of criticised them a little bit earlier for not planning and not maybe always ensuring that the squad is as well stocked as it could be, I think they do now have quite a lot of quality, and that sort of helps to paper over the cracks. But yeah, you do sort of feel that, especially going into this run of really intense fixtures where you're playing every few days, you wouldn't like to see them lose too many more, because I think they're sort of on the cusp of going from it being like a little bit of an issue to a serious issue.
Yeah, he's got 12, I think that includes international appearances all season. So, I mean, it's a very good return, isn't it, so far for Jota? Liverpool's injury crisis. Can we call it a crisis? I think we can call it a crisis.
A mini crisis.
A mini crisis, that's fair.
One more injury away from it being a full-blown crisis.
Yeah, I think so. But it's been impressive the way certain players, Tsimikas, Joe Gomez. I think Joe Gomez is probably the poster boy for stepping up for Liverpool this season. Endo recently. It has been impressive, Tom, isn't it, the way they've dealt with different injuries in different areas, even Kelleher.
Yeah, I mean, Kelleher, he had a tough game against Fulham. That wasn't, his best performance, but usually when he's played, he's done really well. Tsimikas, that's probably the position I think fans are most concerned about because of how good Robertson is on a consistent basis. Very rarely has a bad game for Liverpool, and with Tsimikas, he's always someone that's a bit hit and miss. Maybe sometimes he'll come in and do really well, other times not so much. I think he's done reasonably well so far since coming into the team. Still got a few more games to go where he'll be playing ahead of Robertson, so we'll see how that goes. Endo, I think that was a signing a lot of people were a bit unsure about in the summer, and he's looked. I mean, probably needs a bit more time to adapt to the league, but in terms of the speed and physicality and that sort of thing. But he's stepped up the last couple of games, like you said, and it's just whether that will continue if you keep losing other players in certain positions, like if you lost Van Dijk, for example, then who knows, what happens there.
Yeah.
That's the big one. Alisson's a bit of a strange one because he's had quite a few injuries, hasn't he, for a goalkeeper as well?
I think with Alisson, he often seems to get one a season. Keeps him out for several games. But I think for what's been made of Kelleher didn't have a great game against Fulham, but I think that Liverpool of all teams, I mean, maybe Arsenal because they've got two people that aren't anywhere near on the level of Alisson, but probably similar level. But Liverpool have two goalkeepers that I always feel confident when Kelleher comes in. And I think the other added bonus for Liverpool this season is the Europa League and League Cup mean that all of these players come in with a bit of football under their belts. They don't come out in the cold. They know the patterns. They know their teammates. And for someone like Endo, I think that has been vital. Sheffield United, if any game was the epitome of winning ugly, Theo, that was as ugly as they come. But Liverpool got through it. They scored twice. They kept a clean sheet. You need those games, don't you, throughout the season if you're going to sustain a challenge at the top of the table? Yeah,
you do, especially this time of year. Like, we know how hectic the festive fixture list is, and players are going to get tired. They are going to get fatigued. And when you're getting all these injuries as well, your options aren't quite there to offer the support. It is just getting the points on the board. Klopp said it a few times this year now, where he doesn't really want to think about the title race until April, where they see they're actually in it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter whether you're Newcastle and you put 8 past Sheffield United, or you're Liverpool and you sort of flinch you a little bit. You struggle a little bit and get the 2.
New manager bounce as well, wasn't it?
New manager bounce.
I wouldn't say I don't fully believe that, but I do think it would have been a different game had Chris Wilder not.
Well, the atmosphere was good. Like the fans were up for it, and it was just a case of which way the first goal goes decides it. I think we all feared if Liverpool fell behind, it could be one of those games where they suffer a defeat that you've seen come in, but that shouldn't happen to them. Whereas they got the goal, and that seemed to calm them down. They certainly got the confidence there, and Sheffield United were a little bit deflated. They did cause problems. Archer got a lot of the ball. He's getting space in behind the defence. But there was rarely a time when you thought they're going to score here. Like Kelleher made a couple of great saves. Van Dijk put in some great blocks. Like Liverpool dealt with the limited stuff that was thrown at them, and they took the chances at the big moments. Van Dijk's goal was crucial, and then getting the clincher right at the end probably was a foul from Nunes, but you take it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did think if that wasn't given against if that was allowed against Liverpool, a lot of eyebrows would have been raised. Who stood out for you, Beth, in terms of that game? It's a difficult game for, I suppose, true performances to stand out, but it was more about grit, about game management.
Yeah,
I
think Van Dijk probably. I mean, obviously he gets the goal, keeps a clean sheet. He made that fantastic block, didn't he, when they were on the attack in the first half, Sheffield United. So I think he was given man of the match and deservedly so. But I thought Endo was very good. I thought probably Liverpool's best midfielder and the best player aside from Van Dijk. And he made that slightly rash, very rash challenge in the first half, and it could have perhaps been a little bit worse. But he picks up the yellow, and I did sort of think after that, would he get hooked at half time? But Klopp sort of put his faith in him, and he repaid that faith. I thought he managed that really well. And I think the thing with Endo is, well, a couple of things. I think first of all, he loves putting a tackle in, doesn't he? And I really like that. I think sometimes Liverpool's midfield, especially last season, was just too passive, and players would be able to run through without anyone putting a challenge in. So, if he's capable of doing that, and every so often he gets a yellow card, then that's fine by me. And I thought he was good at that on Wednesday night. But I also think what you're getting from him. He keeps it simple. He's sort of a no nonsense sort of player. He's not going to be the flashiest. But that being said, I thought he actually played some really nice passes on Wednesday night, and he took the ball on the half turn a couple of times, took on a couple of players, and you only have to look at his goal against Fulham to see that he has got enormous quality as well. So delighted for him, and was really pleased to see Klopp give him a little shout out after the game as well, because he hasn't had the easiest start. He's faced a little bit of criticism from fans and things online. So I was impressed with him. But Van Dijk, I think, sort of sums up what he's been like this season, doesn't it? Sort of his imperious best, and I think for most of that game, it wasn't a vintage performance by any means, but I was a little bit nervous ahead of that one, especially because of the whole Chris Wilder thing and it being under the lights on a Wednesday night, and Liverpool's record away from home to newly promoted sides. And I think with all that in mind, Liverpool dealt with that fairly well. And you look back at the season that Liverpool won the league, it took Gini Wijnaldum's spilled effort to get 3 points away to Sheffield United. So it's always going to be the sort of game that is going to be quite an ugly win if you go on to get 3 points. So I think overall positives to take.
I think when you don't watch a team, you have this idea, don't you, that they win every game with ease and with style. And I always think that about Man City. I think, they won again. That was, but I suppose if you watch City every week, there's been so many games with them where you think, they might drop points in, and they just get over the line. So it is impressive. Tom, the league table now, I mean, it's incredible, really. You go down to West Ham in 9th, 24, Brighton 25, Newcastle 26, Manchester United on 27 points.
Level got manager of the month, player of the month.
Yeah. Level on points with Tottenham, who of course we know won the league 6 weeks ago. Man City on 30 points, and then Aston Villa 32, Liverpool 34. And Arsenal, who won the league on Tuesday night, 36. So I mean, it's an incredible. I mean, I've not seen anything like this for years. So how do you see that shaking up? Who do you think? It seems to be one of those seasons where a month goes by and we can see a very different league table if we sit here on the 8th of January. How do you see things on the 8th of January?
Platform there to be smug because you predicted Arsenal.
I did put Arsenal to win the league. Just saying.
Yeah, but you also get very smug. I think you were saying after about 3 games that they'd already won the league. So I still will believe Arsenal win the league when I see it. But where do you think that table will shake up?
Well, you're saying about I've not had a season like this for a while. I think the last time was probably the 13-14 season when there was loads of teams like around Christmas that were in it. Everton were up the top, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. So that's probably the last season we've had that's been similar to this. I think we'll probably see a few drop away in the next few weeks. I think Spurs, they're showing at the minute they're not going to be there. I don't think at the end of the season. Don't think Man United will be either. I think been riding their luck quite a little bit when they've won games this season. They're not playing well. It'd be interesting to see what happens next weekend at Anfield when Liverpool play them. Arsenal are going to be there at the end. Liverpool and Man City. I think it's going to be between those 3 teams.
Villa?
I don't think they'll be. They'll probably get top 4. I think.
It's impressive. What
I think they could get fourth, but I don't think the title. Don't think Man City are going to be there at the end. They'll push Liverpool and Arsenal close, but I don't think they're going to be within.
Tom Cavilla does not speak for the rest of the Echo Sports desk.
I don't honestly. They're not playing well at all. I know everyone says they're going to go on this end of season run where they win 15.
They never do that, do they?
No, I don't see it happening this year. They don't look anything like the City of the last few years. They've got, after you've won the treble, you're never going to be the same the next season in terms of the same determination, the same hunger to win. I think this is just going to be an off year for them, a bit like the year when Liverpool won the league a few years ago, where they were miles back off Liverpool. I don't think it would be 20 odd points, but I think they'll be a good few points behind Arsenal and Liverpool.
That's a really bold claim.
I think City will go on a run.
Yeah,
I still think City will win the league. I think
really
they're just by far the best football team in the league, and Arsenal. I think I'd really like to see Arsenal tested away from home at their big rivals at City, at Liverpool. You know, and I think that's where they came unstuck last year. And while I thought I massively think Arsenal have kicked on, and I think Declan Rice is a fantastic player, really the right type of personality that they needed. I still think, and look, they may get over that hurdle, and if they do, very impressive, and I'm sure they'll win the league if they do. But getting over that final hurdle and getting over those psychological hurdles of going away and getting points at City, getting points at Anfield, you know, I think is the most difficult hurdle to do, and we've seen there'll be a lot of pressure of them in those games, so we'll see how they cope. But
I do think with City though, I mean, I know they've got a couple of injuries as well, and obviously De Bruyne is the big one. But when I saw the lineup against Villa, I was like, God, they've not really got. They had about 6 defenders in the team, and I know Pep has started trying to sort of play that way and have a lot of centre halves playing at left back and in midfield with John Stones, but they really like. It looked like a team lacking in creativity a little bit, and then you looked at the bench and they had like, you know, that Oscar Bob who's about 18 years old, and
nothing away.
Like
so
I do sort
So
of
Norwegian, another Norwegian, yeah, he's all right.
but I do sort of think history dictates they will go on a run, and I do think that they will be right in the mix at the end. But I think they really, really miss De Bruyne, and I think they also really miss Gundogan, and I think he's a very difficult player to replace.
They're definitely weaker, and I think it's a huge opportunity for the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal this season, and that's why Klopp will get asked questions about transfers, Theo, isn't it? Because you know there is a window opportunity there, and if Liverpool don't take it, then I think they might regret it if City then just transform and go again the following season.
Yeah, at the moment, I'd say the title race is in Liverpool's hands. Like, your depth is stronger than everyone else in this league, and you're not at your best yet.
And you've got enough players as well who've done it before.
Yeah, you've got that experience. Like, that's where I reckon Arsenal will fall short. They will get injuries. They'll go deeper in the Champions League, and they'll go, which way are we looking here? And they'll stumble. Like, we're already seeing some of the sides who are having to balance those both on both plates, like Brighton, West Ham. They're not quite as consistent as they have been in the past. Tottenham, they've got a few injuries and they fall apart. Newcastle get a few injuries and they're very inconsistent. Whereas Liverpool, they've got that experience, they've got that depth, and they just go from strength to strength without being at their best. Like, you're getting lots of minutes for lots of players across the competitions. And maybe if you get 1 or 2 players in January to make that squad even better, they can make a huge difference. We've seen it in the past. You bring in Diaz, Liverpool can suddenly challenge for all 4 trophies in 2022. The right sort of player can make the difference here and give them that little kick for the rest of the campaign. And the fact that they are gradually going away, doing it under the radar, like, they can go top and you're not really focusing on them. You think, oh, Arsenal are doing well because they've just put 4 past Luton, got that last minute winner, and City dropped up. There's Liverpool just quietly doing the business, waiting for that last stretch. That's when they'll go strong. That's when you think, how strong are this side? How much can they go for a Premier League title? But you can't really see them dropping off because you're happy with it at the moment. League Cup quarterfinals, you reckon, yep, get that first trophy in the bag. The squad's showed it can balance Europa League and Premier League. You get to that business end, they've done it all before. It's not going to be Man City, it's not going to be Arsenal, maybe it'll be Liverpool.
Well, that's a very positive way. I'd like to finish the pod on that, but we can't because we do have to talk about one of the games that's happening, which is Crystal Palace versus Liverpool, which I don't think we've even mentioned yet. But there's not too much to analyse. Selhurst Park, it's one of those sort of...
Home of AFC Richmond.
Okay, thanks. One of those sort of places that we always say it's a tough place to go.
Yeah.
Liverpool do have quite a good record there. Beth, and 12:30 we know isn't our favourite kick-off time. But what do you think tomorrow? Are you confident?
I'm confident that Liverpool will win. I don't think, again, I think it might be another slightly scrappy performance. That 7-0 aside when it was behind closed doors, I can't remember too many sort of real comprehensive wins we've had there recently. Like you say, it's one of those places you always think, it's a difficult place to go. But then Liverpool's recent record there is actually very good. And I think they should have enough to get the win. I mean, Roy Hodgson has been really Roy Hodgson in this week, hasn't he? Some of the things that he's come out and said about Palace, that basically saying they're a mid-table side and he should be happy with the lot, which is fun.
He lost the job in the first place, wasn't it?
Classic Hodgson. But I think, talking about the title race and stuff, I think these next 3 Premier League games are huge. I think if Liverpool win all 3, Palace, United and Arsenal, then we can really say they're in a title race. I think if they slip up, certainly if they slip up tomorrow and if they drop points to United, that the only one you could sort of maybe forgive them not winning is the Arsenal game. But even that one, I think if they win those 3, then you can say, right, the title contenders.
I think they won't just be title contenders, they'll very much be in control of their own destiny. Let's pick our teams. Tom, we'll start with you. Let's say Alisson is back in goal, because
I hope so.
Klopp heavily hinted at that, didn't he? And if he trained fully yesterday, then you would like to think that he would be ready. Did you get that vibe, Theo?
Yeah, there's plenty of time for him to assess it.
Yeah.
Whether they're training today or not, they'll have conversations with him. It's whether he feels ready. He's not going to play against Union.
Yeah.
It's whether you want to give him the game time to get ahead to the United match or not.
Yeah. Tom, who's your back four?
Tsimikas, Konate, Van Dijk, and Alexander-Arnold. I think that's probably going to be that.
Yeah, go along with that, Beth?
Yeah, I go along with that as well.
Yeah.
It's probably the same, but I reckon there's an argument to put Trent in midfield for this one. Mendo's obviously started last one. It's whether you want to keep him there. I quite like the idea of trying Trent in midfield at some point. So
you're desperate for a bit of Trent in midfield.
Yeah.
I'm slowly starting to think that the Trent in midfield is certainly something they should try. But
I think try it at Anfield first.
Yeah,
in a
bad show.
yeah.
it depends who you're playing. You've got United and Arsenal next to you. That's not where you want to try it.
No.
Palace is the time to try it, and you can put Gomez right back. He played pretty well after a difficult start midweek. And if you've got these midfield injuries, maybe it's good to have Trent in midfield. So basically the same, but with Gomez.
Well, we'll stick with you, because then I want to know your midfield then.
Okay, Szoboszlai keeps his place. He massively improved against Sheffield United. Trent can be the holder, and let's go Curtis Jones on the left. Okay. McAllister's out. Jones got in ahead of Gravenberch, didn't he? So go with that 3.
Beth.
I'm gonna keep Endo in, because I didn't think he really did much wrong. Szoboszlai and Gravenberch.
Yeah.
I'm going to go the same as Beth. Yeah.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Very torn, because I think you make a very persuasive Trent in midfield argument, but I like that. I like the best of both worlds, and keeping him at right back gets the worst of both worlds. And I don't want to see the Endo of his run. So
one game run.
Yeah,
how long have you been planning that one?
Yeah, not just don't tell me now. But no, I think this is why they bought Endo. I thought he did well the other night in a scrappy game. It suited him, and
he starts the Union game now.
I almost think
Play the kids.
Play a team of under 21s in that game, and just don't worry about it. I think they need to keep certainly midfielders wrapped up in cotton wool for the next couple of weeks. So I would play Endo. I would play Jones. I don't think Gravenberch has been all that impressive.
He's been up and down, hasn't he? It was a big cameo for him against Man City.
Yeah.
But then he wasn't great when he had the last start.
Yeah.
But I would argue that Jones hasn't been great either.
No, that is true as well. But you just feel a bit more trust in Jones, don't you?
Feel like he hangs onto the ball a little bit better, whereas Gravenberch makes more things happen, perhaps, but he's a bit more of a
game
risk.
changing sub. Bring him on if you need a goal in the final half hour.
And Szoboszlai definitely keeps his place. Great finish, by the way.
Yeah.
I love a blast when you could place it, but instead you blast it.
You did an amazing second half.
Love that. And then up front, Beth, we'll start with Beth, because you've both started.
Salah, although I still think he'll wait until United to get his 200th goal.
Yeah,
that would be a horrible drought.
That's written in the stars, isn't it, for him to get his 200th there, I think.
I like a sort of the old Alisson long ball.
Yeah, and he takes his shirt off. Yeah. So I think Salah, Núñez, and Diaz.
Yep. Tom?
I'm a bit undecided about Nunez because some weeks I think he's great, and then other weeks it's like can't finish.
Even in one, like the cameo the other night, there was a couple of moments when I was like, "Pass that, get onside," and then eventually he does do something. So that's Nunez, isn't it? I suppose in a nutshell.
Yeah, it was just like the Fulham game as well. He had that one that hit the bar, and it's like a one-on-one. You think you've got to score.
He had a one-on-one against Sheffield United.
Yeah, so I don't know if Klopp will stick with Gakpo again and potentially bring him off the bench, but seeing as he didn't start the last game, we'll start him this time and go Diaz and Salah.
Yeah.
I reckon Nunes down the middle. Sort of going unnoticed that he's on a bit of a drought at the moment. Yeah. He's not scored in the league since October.
Yeah.
But he is still making things happen. He's still creating chances, getting assists. And Liverpool struggled to create chances really before he came on in midweek. Yeah. So I'd start him. Salah on the right. He seems to start every game. He's going to get the rest against Union. Palace are one of his favoured opponents. So I suppose most of the league are his favoured opponents. And I'll go Gakpo on the left. I don't think Diaz had the best of game against Sheffield United. Understandably why he's been a bit hot and cold so far this season. But Liverpool were going down the left a lot and he wasn't really doing anything with it, whereas Gakpo's looking a bit promising in the last few games. So
it's funny because I would almost say that this game could be one for Harvey Elliott, but you just don't know where he's not going to put him in instead of Salah. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where he'd come in, perhaps in midfield, but again, with the balance.
With Elliott in midfield, you can see the profile Klopp's wanting there. He's wanting the big athletic players. Yeah. That's why they signed Gravenberch, and Elliott's sort of getting forgotten there. Like, in this run where they are rotating, he's the one who's not getting the starts because he's not over 6 foot and beefed out.
He was very good at the start of the season, wasn't he? And I think his influence has not been felt as much since then. But he needs to start a few over Christmas. Okay, predictions.
Was that going me first?
Go on.
Let's go 2-1 Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool.
2-0.
2-0. Yeah.
Can't be as bad as the game there last year anyway. The
0-0. That was one of the worst games.
Navigator's farewell.
Jordan Henderson blocked Trent's free kick that was going in.
Yeah, that made the Sheffield United game look very beautiful. 2-1 I go as well. Let's hope so. Right, we'll leave it there. We'll be back on Monday to discuss that Crystal Palace game, to look ahead to Union in the Europa League, and then of course that huge game against Manchester United next weekend. We'll see you then. It's all right.